The Star Trek film franchise is the cinematic branch of the Star Trek media franchise, which began in 1966 as a weekly television series on NBC, running for 3 seasons until it was cancelled in 1969 because of poor ratings. Reruns of the series proved to be wildly successful in syndication during the 1970s, which persuaded the series' then-owner, Paramount Pictures, to expand the franchise. Paramount originally began work on a Star Trek feature film in 1975 after lobbying by the creator of the franchise, Gene Roddenberry. The studio scrapped the project 2 years later in favor of creating a television series, Star Trek, Phase 2, with the original cast. However, following the huge success of Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Paramount would change its mind again, halting production on the television series and adapting its pilot episode into the 1979 Star Trek feature film, Star Trek, the Motion Picture. 5 more films featuring the entire original cast followed. The cast of the 1987–1994 spin-off series Star Trek, The Next Generation starred in a further 4 films. After a 7-year hiatus, a new film was released in 2009, simply titled Star Trek, serving as a reboot to the franchise with a new cast portraying younger versions of the original series characters. The Star Trek films have received 15 Academy Award nominations. 2009 Star Trek won for Best Makeup and Hairstyling in 2010, and 4 of the previous films had been nominated mainly in the areas of makeup, music, set design and sound design. The early Star Trek films were originally released on VHS. Competitive pricing of the Wrath of Khan's videocassette helped bolster the adoption of VHS players in households. Later films were also released on Laserdisc as well. For those films that did not receive an initial DVD release, Paramount released simple 1-disc versions with no special features. Later, the first 10 films were released in 2-disc collector's versions, with the motion picture and The Wrath of Khan branded as director's cuts, followed by later box set releases. All of the films are now available on Blu-ray, digital download, streaming media and video on demand. A sequel to 2009 Star Trek Into Darkness, was released in theaters in May 2013. Development, origins. Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry first suggested the idea of a Star Trek feature in 1969. When the original television series was cancelled, he lobbied to continue the franchise through a film. The success of the series in syndication convinced the studio to begin work on a feature film in 1975. A series of writers attempted to craft a suitably epic script, but the attempts did not satisfy Paramount, so the studio scrapped the project in 1977. Paramount instead planned on returning the franchise to its roots with a new television series, Star Trek, Phase 2. The box office success of Close Encounters of the Third Kind convinced Paramount that science fiction films other than Star Wars could do well at the box office, so the studio cancelled production of Phase 2 and resumed its attempts at making a Star Trek film. Principal photography for Star Trek, the motion picture commenced August 7, 1978 with director Robert Wise helming the feature. The production encountered difficulties and slipped behind schedule. Paramount had approached Douglas Trumbull and John Dykstra to handle the film's optical effects, but each was busy or unwilling. The production instead went with Robert Abel and Associates, who proved unable to handle the film's large amount of effects work. Trumbull was hired and given a blank check to complete the effects work in time. The final cut of the film was completed just in time for the film's premiere in Washington, D.C. The film introduced an upgrade to the technology and starship designs, making for a dramatic visual departure from the original series. The Starship Enterprise was refitted with a modernized design, both exterior and interior. Many of the set elements created for the earlier aborted Phase 2 television series were adapted and enhanced for use in the first feature film. The film received mixed reviews from critics. While it grossed $82,258,456, the film's price tag had climbed to about $35 million due to costly effects work and delays. The original series cast, the motion picture's gross was considered disappointing, but it was enough for Paramount to back a sequel. albeit with a reduced budget. After Gene Roddenberry pitched a sequel to the motion picture in which the crew of the Enterprise goes back in time to ensure the assassination of John F. Kennedy, he was kicked upstairs to a ceremonial role while Paramount brought in television producer Harve Bennett to craft a better and cheaper film than the first feature. After watching all the television episodes, Bennett decided that the character of Khan Narayan Singh was the perfect villain for the new film. Nicholas Meyer became director after he finished a complete screenplay in just 12 days. Meyer did everything possible within budget to give The Wrath of Khan a nautical, swashbuckling feel, which he described as Horatio Hornblower in outer space. Upon release, the reception of The Wrath of Khan was highly positive. Entertainment Weekly's Mark Bernardine called The Wrath of Khan, the film that, by most accounts, saved Star Trek as we know it. Meyer declined to return for the next film, so directing duties were given to cast member Leonard Nimoy for the third film. Paramount gave Bennett the green light to write Star Trek III the day after The Wrath of Khan opened. The producer penned a resurrection story for Spock that built on threads from the previous film and the original series episode Amok Time. Nimoy remained director for the next film in the series. Nimoy and Bennett wanted a film with a lighter tone that did not have a classic antagonist. They decided on a time travel story with the Enterprise crew returning to their past to retrieve something to save their presenter eventually, humpback whales. After having been dissatisfied with the script written by Daniel Petrie, Jr., Paramount hired Meyer to rewrite the screenplay with Bennett's help. Meyer drew upon his own time travel story time after time for elements of the script. William Shatner was promised his turn as director for Star Trek V, and Nicholas Meyer returned as director for Star Trek VI. The Next Generation cast, both the sixth and seventh films acted as transitions between the films featuring the original cast and those with the cast of Next Generation, with the sixth focusing on the original cast and the seventh focusing on the TNG cast. The Next Generation cast made 4 films over a period of 8 years, with the last 2 performing only moderately well and disappointingly at the box office. Star Trek. After the financial failure of Star Trek, Nemesis and the cancellation of the television series Star Trek, Enterprise, the franchise's executive producer Rick Berman and screenwriter Eric Gendreisen began developing a new film, entitled Star Trek, The Beginning, which would take place after Enterprise but before the original series. J.J. Abrams, the producer of Cloverfield and creator of Lost, was a Star Wars fan as a child and confessed that the Star Trek franchise disconnected for him. In February 2007, Abrams accepted Paramount's offer to direct the new Star Trek film, having been previously attached as producer. Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman wrote a script that impressed Abrams, featuring new actors portraying younger versions of the original series cast. The Enterprise, its interior, and the original uniforms were redesigned. While the film was ready for a December 2008 release, Paramount chose to move the film's opening to May 8, 2009. The film earned over $350 million worldwide, and surpassed Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home as the highest-grossing film in the franchise. The sequel was green-lighted even before the first one opened, and Paramount released the film on May 17, 2013. The film also has the distinction of being the first film in the franchise to win an Academy Award. It won for Best Makeup and Hairstyling in 2010. The Curse. Fans commonly considered the films to follow a curse that even-numbered films were better than the odd-numbered installments. The 10th film, Nemesis, was considered the even film that defied the curse. The failure of Nemesis and subsequent success of Star Trek is considered to have broken the trend, though some have tried to uphold the trend either by counting the parody Galaxy Quest as an honorary Star Trek film, by using the sum of the digits as an indicator, or by referring to the 2009 reboot as Star Trek Zero due to it being set before the others. The curse is well known enough that it has been mentioned often in pop culture. One of the best known occurred in a 1999 episode of the Channel 4 sitcom Spaced, where it was referenced by Tim Sley, played by Simon Pegg. Pegg, quite conscious of the irony, played Scotty in the reboot films. Plot synopses and series connections. The original series, the motion picture. a massive energy cloud advances toward Earth, leaving destruction in its wake, and the Enterprise must intercept it to determine what lies within, and what its intent might be. The movie borrows many elements from the Changeling of the original series, and one of our planets is missing from the animated series. The Wrath of Khan. Khan Nowanian Singh, whom Kirk thwarted in his attempt to seize control of the Enterprise 15 years earlier, seeks his revenge and lays a cunning and sinister trap. Both the first and second films have television versions with additional footage and alternate takes that affect the storyline. Especially notable in The Wrath of Khan is the footage establishing that a young crew member who acts courageously and dies during an attack on the Enterprise is Scotty's nephew. The search for Spock. When McCoy begins acting irrationally, Kirk learns that Spock, in his final moments, transferred his Katra, his living spirit, to the Doctor. In order to save McCoy from emotional ruin, Kirk and crew steal the Enterprise and violate the quarantine of the Genesis planet to retrieve Spock, erstwhile resurrected by the rapidly dying planet itself, in the hope that body and soul can be rejoined. Bent on obtaining the secret of Genesis for themselves, however, a rogue Klingon and his crew interfere, with deadly consequences. The first film to be a direct sequel to the previous Trek film. The Voyage Home. While returning to stand court-martial for their actions in rescuing Spock, Kirk and crew learn that Earth is under siege by a giant probe that is transmitting a destructive signal. The signal is intended for the long-extinct species of humpback whales. To save the planet, the crew must time travel back to the 20th century to obtain a mating pair of these whales, and a marine biologist to care for them. The second through fourth films loosely form a trilogy, with the later plots building on elements of the earlier ones. The third film picks up within several days of the conclusion of the second, the fourth 3 months after the third. The third and fourth films were both directed by Leonard Nimoy, best known as the actor playing Spock. The Final Frontier. Spock's half-brother believes he is summoned by God, and hijacks the brand new Enterprise A to take it through the Great Barrier, at the center of the Milky Way, beyond which he believes his maker waits for him. Meanwhile, a young and vain Klingon zealot, seeking glory in what he views as an opportunity to avenge his people of the deaths of their crewmen at Genesis, sets his sights on Kirk. The Undiscovered Country. After Konos is devastated by an environmental catastrophe, the Klingons make peace overtures to the Federation. The Klingon Chancellor, en route to Earth for a summit, is assassinated by Enterprise crewmen, and Kirk is held accountable by the Chancellor's Chief of Staff. Spock attempts to prove his captain's innocence, but in so doing uncovers a massive conspiracy against the peace process, with participants from both sides. This film is a send-off to the original crew. One Next Generation cast member, Michael Dorn, appears as the grandfather of the character he plays on the later TV series. It is the second and last Trek film directed by Nicholas Meyer and last script co-authored by Leonard Nimoy. The Next Generation, Generations. Picard enlists the help of Kirk, who is presumed long dead but flourishes in an extra-dimensional realm, to prevent a madman from destroying a star and its populated planetary system in an attempt to enter that realm. Following 7 seasons of Star Trek, The Next Generation, the next Star Trek film was the first to feature the crew of the Enterprise D along with a long prologue sequence featuring 3 members of the original cast. First Contact. The Borg attempt to prevent first contact between Earth and Vulcan by interfering with Sven Cochrane's warp test in the past. Picard must confront the demons which stem from his assimilation into the collective as he leads the Enterprise E back in time to ensure the test and subsequent meeting with the Vulcans take place. This is one of the most popular Star Trek films following Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. It is also a spin-off of an episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation. Insurrection. Profoundly disturbed by what he views as a blatant violation of the Prime Directive, Picard deliberately interferes with a Starfleet admiral's plan to relocate a relatively small but, seemingly, immortal population from a planet in order to gain control of the planet's natural radiation, which has been discovered to have substantial medicinal properties. But the Admiral himself is a pawn in his alien partner's mission of vengeance. Nemesis. A clone of Picard, created by the Romulans but eventually exiled to hard labor on Remus, assassinates the entire Romulan Senate, assumes dictatorship, and lowers Picard and the Enterprise to Romulus under false pretenses. This film was a critical and commercial disappointment and was the final Star Trek film to feature the Next Generation cast and to be produced by Rick Berman. Reboot series, Star Trek. When Vulcan is destroyed by Romulans from the future, Starfleet cadet Kirk and instructor Spock must set aside their differences to prevent Earth from suffering the same fate. This film acts as a reboot to the existing franchise by taking place in an alternate reality using the plot device of time travel to depict an altered timeline, featuring younger versions of the original series cast. It is the first production to feature an entirely different cast of actors playing roles previously established by other actors, with the exception of an aged Spock played by Leonard Nimoy. It was directed by J.J. Abrams and written by Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman. According to Lindelof, this production was designed to attract a wider audience. It received positive reviews and a number of awards. Into Darkness. A Starfleet special agent coerces an officer into blowing up a secret installation in London, shoots up a subsequent meeting of Starfleet brass in San Francisco, and then flees to Cognos. The crew of the Enterprise attempt to bring him to justice without provoking war with the Klingon Empire, but find there is much more to the agent's mission, and the man himself, than what the fleet admiral has told them. Future. During an interview with HitFix, it was confirmed that Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto will do at least one more film. Abrams has confirmed that he will not be directing the third film but will produce it. The film is rumored to be released in 2016, coinciding with the 50th anniversary of the franchise. In December 2013, it was announced and confirmed that Roberto Orci will return as screenwriter with McKay and Payne, but Orci's longtime collaborator Alex Kurtzman will not return as screenwriter and Joe Cornish will not be involved in the film. On April 22, 2014, Orci told Variety that he may be directing the film. On May 9, 2014, Deadline reported that Orci was considered the lead candidate for director of the film. A few days later, Variety confirmed that Orci will indeed direct the next installment. Star Trek, Xena. In 2014, fans and former cast members organized a fan short film called Prelude to Xena, setting up a Kickstarter project with a target of $10,000, but which raised well over $100,000 instead. This film is slated for release in the winter of 2014, to be followed by a full-length feature film titled Star Trek, Xena, and funded by a much larger Kickstarter project. These films star Richard Hatch, J.G. Hertzler, Kate Vernon, Gary Graham, Michael Hogan, and Tony Todd, all mainstream science fiction actors from Star Trek and the rebooted Battlestar Galactica. The official first trailer for this film has already been released. Cast members. The following table shows the cast members who played the primary characters in the film series. Michael Dorn, who played Worf in the Next Generation TV series and films, portrayed that character's grandfather in The Undiscovered Country. Crew and other. Reception, Academy Awards, box office performance, critical response, home video. The Star Trek films were the first media in the franchise to be released on DVD. The second through ninth films were issued in vanilla versions, with their trailers being their only special features. The 10th film was the only film to have a single-disc release with a variety of special features. In 2001, Paramount Pictures re-released the first film on DVD, which was redone with new computerized special effects to better satisfy the vision of Robert Wise. The director's edition was an enormous success and Paramount eventually re-released the rest of the films on 2-disc special edition DVDs. The second and sixth film in these special editions were slightly extended. The original theatrical versions were only on the basic DVDs and Blu-rays. The DVD special editions of the first 10 films were issued in sets as well, including all 10, the first 6, and the last 4. The films were released on Blu-ray, with the original cast's films and the Next Generations released in separate collections. The first 10 movies are available in certain markets as a complete box set including Legends of the Final Frontier collection. Notes References. External links. Star Trek Movies page at startrek.com